the most underrated Castlevania game. I could be bold and say it's the second best action game in the series behind Rondo of Blood. I could, but I won't go that far yet. I want to play through Super one more time, then really think about it. Regardless, Chronicles is at least of the same quality as Super. Castlevania Chronicles is so good and the most underrated game in the series. Castlevania Chronicles, released in 2001 on the PlayStation. This game is an enhanced version of the 1993 Sharp X68000, the nerdiest name for a video game console, remake of the original Castlevania Akumaju Dracula. The PlayStation game includes the original version of that game, ported perfectly, but also the all-new Arranged mode. The Arranged mode is what we will be looking at today. It is the superior mode. It has a lot of difficulty changes, which is good because the 68000 version is known as possibly the hardest game in the series. Chronicles is a lot easier, but its main claim to fame is the all-new soundtrack and a new sprite for Simon. This is Simon Belmont. Yeah, pretty different. There's been a good deal of backlash to this design over the years. I think its reception's a little more positive now, and it's easy to see why. He went from a classic barbarian to this. I think the reaction to the design would have been more positive if it was anyone but Simon. If it was a new Belmont or even like Trevor, it wouldn't have been as big a deal. But not Simon. We've known Simon from the beginning and had an idea of what he looked like for 15 years before this Kojima version. I wouldn't want this to become the default version of Simon, but for this game, it works. I like it more than the original Simon sprite. He is stylish and flamboyant, it grabs your attention, and it perfectly suits the rave party atmosphere this game has going for it. The PS1 version has an all-new soundtrack, and it is unlike anything the series has seen before. It is bombastic. It says, rave on. You feel like you aren't going to Dracula's castle to kill him, but because he invited you to the Monster Mash. This game is the strangest version of Wicked Child I've ever heard, and Vampire Killer is a blast. I love the soundtrack for two reasons. One, it bangs. Two, it is a remake of a game that already kinda had a remake, and had a bunch of sequels that borrowed a lot from it. Giving Chronicles its own identity was needed, and a huge breath of fresh air. We've seen the standard thing before, let's get weird. If you really need the normal Castlevania experience, then you can play original mode with its traditional soundtrack, Brown Simon, and crushing difficulty. To sum up my thoughts on the changes to Arrange mode, look at the walk cycles. Red Simon looks like he's jamming along to the music, having a good little time. Original Simon looks like he really has to poop, but you can't run or it might come out, so he's just trying to get to the bathroom as fast as possible without running. You tell me which is better. The gameplay in Chronicles is pretty great, with two noticeable exceptions. Simon moves quick and the whip has decent range and gets out really fast. You have pretty much full control over your jump and can reverse it in midair. There's no 8-way whipping, but you can whip straight down or at a downward angle in the air. I like this compromise because straight up whipping was the most OP in Super. This gives you options, but because you can only use it in the air, it's not really your plan to use it. I mainly used it as a backup if I got myself in a bad spot. It's a last chance reflex instead of a strategy to get through the game. The major flaws are no jumping on and off stairs, and up plus whip activates sub-weapons. Why? Just because that's how it was in the original Castlevania? Super made these necessary improvements years ago. Simon is sleek and mobile until he gets on the stairs where the gameplay just grinds to a halt. The PlayStation and Sharp had more than enough buttons, why can't I use them for sub-weapons? These are annoying things that could have easily fixed, but in general the gameplay is fast and smooth. There's 8 levels in the game, and they are a mix of new content, reimagining the original game, and straight up recreating it. Stage 1 is the same Stage 1 we know, just with the presentation cranked all the way up to fun. Stage 2 is an all-new cave that has multiple paths to choose from. It's the most boring stage to look at, but I still like it, and some weird things are going on here. There's this snot, which is annoying, and all you do is whip it a million times, then you can move on. It's not paired with any enemies, and only appears once, it feels kind of pointless. There's this really weird merchant dude. He will give you an item, but this is the only time he appears in the whole game. Is that not weird? Why is he here? Who is he? What if in RE4 the merchant only appeared once? That'd freak you out, right? I'm confused, but let's move on. This stage ends with something you don't see a lot in the series, a set piece. It is executed fairly well and ends the stage with a bang. The lack of knockback in Arrange mode is definitely super useful during this part. I can't really think of any other set piece like this in the series other than the Minotaur and Rondo level 2, so it's a unique and memorable moment for this game. Stage 3 is really cool. It's got elements from Stage 4 of the original game, Super Castlevania 4, Dracula's Curse, and even Bloodlines, plus an all-new to the series part at the end. The music here is a, I guess, techno version of Wicked Child. A lot of people hate this arrangement, but I think it's great. This is the weirdest the soundtrack ever gets, and it doesn't even sound like Wicked Child a lot of the time. It sounds absolutely nothing like Castlevania, but it rules. I love ice levels in games, so it was a pleasant surprise to see this, even if it doesn't really make any sense to be in Dracula's castle. Now that I mention it, the cave last level didn't really make sense either. Oh well. This ice section looks really nice and has a great atmosphere. There's even a cameo by everyone's favorite light switch flipper, Nosferatu. I know his name's Count Orlok, SpongeBob's a lie. This part reminds me of Gotham, how you're in an ice cave and you fight a lame wizard as a boss. Stage 3 is great, a lot of variety. Starting in Stage 4, the soundtrack gets a little more traditional. There's still some interesting songs, but all the returning classics are faithful in tone. The stage has Bloody Tears play. Get it? Stage 4 has some new parts, some things lifted from the original Stage 2, and even a reimagining of some Dracula's Curse Stage 1. It's good. Pretty much everything this game adds that's an expansion of an old concept is very well done. That's what makes this game so good. Its floor is just Castlevania 1 design, which is super solid, and it frequently improves things that are already good and it makes them even better. I'm going to try to go through the remaining stages a little faster. Stage 5 is probably the hardest in the game. I think it's a mistake it showed up this early. It should have been Stage 7 or 8. It's a clock tower, so it would have been thematically appropriate to be later in the game, too. The stage is vertically oriented, so this is where the stair controls start to be really annoying. The stage isn't that bad until the final leg. These gears just appear out of nowhere and are very cheap the first time through. They can't be whipped and destroyed, whipping them just pushes them away and there's a chance they might just roll back into you. I hate these gear enemies. It's very easy in general to just fall down and have to redo parts of this level. This is easily the most frustrating level in the game, and I think it's a mistake to put it in the middle instead of the end. This is the only level I dislike in the whole game, and even the music is kind of annoying. The next level is extremely unique. It is a tower of dolls? Yeah, that's not what I expected either. And a hall of mirrors. Downward whipping while jumping is extremely useful here. This level is tough but fair and is pretty good in general with good variety, but the boss is a mirror version of Simon. I love rival fights in action games, but whenever Castlevania does it, it always sucks. Other than the boss, I like this level, and the music is even a little Symphony of the Night-like, which is always a good thing. Next is a redo of Stage 5 from the original. I love that level there, and I love it here. It's pretty faithful, but there's some cool new stuff. First off, it's just super gory. If you didn't get the idea this was a torture dungeon before, you do now. Frankenstein's a monster just shows up in the middle of the stage super randomly in the lab part, which really freaks you out. You don't have to fight him, it's just cool he's here. The stage is one of my favorite Castlevania enemies of all time. Large, bone, jump roping skeletons. I love these guys, they're hilarious. The whole trap part of this level is really well done. The stage is fantastic. There's even a cool surprise before death I'm not going to show here too. The final stage is a very faithful theme of Simon playing. I like that. The game had fun with the remixes early on, but now it knows how to get serious, and the final level feels like Castlevania. The final level is hard, second toughest in the game. It's mostly new, but it repeats the bridge section from Stage 6 of the original. The section is much more annoying in this game, and this jump right here, you gotta be like pixel perfect on, and it sucks. I missed it a ton. One thing I don't like is how anticlimactic the transition at Dracula's Keep is. I was really surprised when I finished this normal looking room that looked like the rest of the level and ended up here. It felt weird. Castlevania Chronicles has an awesome presentation, gameplay is fast and fluid with my favorite whip system, it looks nice, and the soundtrack is one of the most adrenaline filled in the series. You just want to crank it up and jam. There aren't really any flaws here. The lack of ambition is like the only thing you could really knock it for, and Stage 5 is too hard and annoying. But other than that, this game's got it going on. It's so good, and has been overlooked for far too long. Nobody cared, well, about the PS1 in general in 2001, but they especially didn't care about an enhanced port of a 1993 old-school tough Castlevania game. It was Metroidvania or bust at that point in time. And Americans didn't know what a sharp X68000 was in 1993 either. So this game has never gotten a fair shake historically. I hope Konami ports it at some point, but I'm not sure where it would fit. It wouldn't really fit on a Metroidvania collection, and they already did every other classic game. Hopefully we can get it and Adventure Rebirth sometime. It is available on PS3, and it frequently goes on sale for like $3. If you feel like digging out your PS3, then go for it. Imagine that, a Castlevania game that might be better than Super you'd never play, and it's only $3. If you like any Belmont-oriented Castlevania game, then you need to play this one, because it's one of the best. Just jamming on the soundtrack alone is worth the price of admission. Play this game, it's good.